Hello. I'm having a little bit more sedate opening because I want to talk before I get to this final week of May. I want to talk about Sam. Sam's made some appearances in videos here and has made appearances in jigsaw puzzle assemblies. He's my cat. We've had him for about 12 years. And Simon, who's our Fluffy, he's Tanya's, and Alexia is her own girl. So, but Sam has been my companion, and he's Daddy's boy. Oh, he's had quite the health journey. He started losing weight a while back. Come on, stay here for a few minutes, okay? I know you don't want to be here. All right, here. Come here. Say hi. Say hi. He said, what? Which is why I get these shirts. But I think, oh, you want to go look out the window, don't you? Anyway, he'd been losing weight. We went in and he had a hyperthyroid, so we took him on some meds. He responded pretty well. Gets a little dab in his right ear in the morning and a little dab in his left ear in the evening. But he started losing weight again, and it's been getting a little bonier. So we took him back in, and the vet. All right, there you go. The vet found a lump on one of his kidneys and felt another one on his other kidney. So they took him in to get X-ray, and long and short of it, on Friday night he was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, and so he's pretty much now in kitty hospice, and the exit to the Rainbow Bridge is it's in the future, and it's visible. It's gone from I know it's going to happen someday to this is it. So as you know, if you watch this channel, Sam is the face of my profile picture, and he's my boy, and he's dying. But he's still happy, he's still energetic, he's still running around, getting into mischief, and we're going to keep him comfortable until the signs become such that helping him across the Rainbow Bridge will occur. The vet has some in-home uh, um, references that they can give, because Sam doesn't like traveling in the car, and he's got separation anxiety from me. He really doesn't like it when I leave the house, and I'm leaving the house this weekend. I'm going to Monster Palooza, but Tanya will be around, so nobody get any ideas. Besides, we've got 3 attack cats. Um. So anyway, that's the downbeat stuff of the week that I wanted to share here. I've already told my son, and we announced it on social media. I've got Facebook, which I hardly ever get on, but I have a friend that's how we communicate. So I stay there, check in on him on occasion. But yeah, them's the breaks. So let's get to this stuff from the 5th and final week of May 2026. Plus, I've got another batch of newspaper clippings from either the San Francisco Examiner or the Oakland Tribune for our weekly trip in the Wayback Machine. So let's get started. I dropped by a thrift store over the weekend, just out of curiosity to see what was there. I'd gone a while back, and they'd had a whole bunch of Clive Cussler novels, a lot of the early Dirk Pitt and they were really in good condition. They were paperbacks. I went back, this was a while. I went back, they weren't there anymore, of course. But I did find a book that I passed on at first, but I kept perseverating about because while it's really not part of my overall, uh, reading interest, I was a child of the 70s and a teenager in the early 80s. So, when I saw this, I thought, okay, I do touch on this kind of material on occasion. So I bought this really nifty Dell paperback of The Happy Hooker by Xavier Hollander, also authored by with Robin Moore and Yvonne Dunleavy. And I'm wondering if I did not check this before I started this because I'm running late today. It's in the evening when I'm recording this. But I think the Robin Moore here might be the same Robin Moore that wrote The Green Berets and The French Connection. But I might be wrong. Yeah, I remember her the advice column she had in Penthouse because I was a teenager. I was 12 or so in 1979, 13 in 1980. Those were the heydays of that kind of magazine. So I did see her advice column, a rather provocative photo that was in there. So after perseverating on it, I figured, I read Marilyn Chambers' autobiography, and I've read the autobiography of Christy Canyon and Hayat Lee, and I think, what was her name? Jenna Jameson, and I've read histories of the adult film industry because, it was pretty ubiquitous in the 70s and the 80s. So while mores and viewing habits have changed greatly, it's still kind of like a more portion of it. And I do remember there were like 3 Happy Hooker movies, and I saw one of them. I think it was the third one. It was The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington. I don't remember. I think Lynn Redgrave played Xavier Hollander in the first Happy Hooker movie, and then there was The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood, and then this last one was The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington. And George Hamilton was in it. He didn't play Xavier Hollander or Xavier. Yeah, Xaviera. Xaviera Hollander. But yeah, I remember seeing that. It's pretty lame. But yeah, I'll read it sometime between now and 2036, I guess. Because in the Wayback Machine trips, we're going to be bumping up against ads for the Happy Hooker movies, as well as like those Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS movies and stuff. They're going to be popping up as I go through the years, But yeah, this is the one addition to the Mount Sudoku, and again, I'll read it sometime between now and 2036, if I make it to 2036. Oh, let's not be morbid. I did finish another puzzle, which is awesome. This one was Omega Oats, which was the puzzle I purchased at Omega Mart at Area 15 in Las Vegas. So enjoy. Okay, reading wise, I did finish Resistance, the second Dave versus the Monster book in the trilogy, but from John Birmingham. And I enjoyed the first book. It was a really kind of like an oddball thing. This safety officer or manager that works on an oil rig that's run by BP in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's the Gulf of Mexico. And uh, the drill kind of like breaks through this hole or this barrier in the multiverse, and these like monsters, they call them orcs and stuff because they don't have anything better to call them. They come bubbling out, and they start eating everybody on the oil rig. And I think the timing of it is that, imagine if the Deepwater Horizon had been attacked by monsters. I think that's the kind of like basis they have, because this is set during the Obama presidency, and Vice President Biden is mentioned in this book, in a very funny way, because he's being interviewed by Dave is being interviewed by Fox and Friends, and they're like, okay, you got to be happy that he survived, but not too happy because our audience doesn't like him. But you know, the first book was kind of like, Dave kind of like getting a handle on. He goes from this guy who's definitely on the bad side of chemical addiction, alcohol and drugs, and definitely probably has some skin cancer and some other issues going on. That because he he hits and kills one of the monsters, he gets doused with its blood or something. He gets infused with this energy, kind of like what happens with Tom Cruise and what was that movie? Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, or whatever they're calling it these days. It's like that, but instead of getting rebirths or to get redo overs, he turns into basically Thor. Nobody can pick up the maul that he used, the splitting maul that he used to hit and kill the creature. Only he can. And of course, he quickly is gets swept up in all kinds of like military shenanigans, defending the world against these monsters that are suddenly showing up. And this book picks up a short time after the Battle of New Orleans, when Dave is a big hero, and he's living the good life, the decadent life in the Bellagio on the Las Vegas Strip, and being the second book in a trilogy, um, and also Dave being a jerk. He really, yeah, there's some challenges in this book because he makes some pretty bad decisions and some pretty disastrous choices that he really doesn't ever really comprehend or understand. And it ends on a cliffhanger for like the third book in the series, which I think is called Ascendance. And I bought the second and third books after finishing the first, so I'll get around to reading the third sometime this year, because it's been entered into the Goodreads cycle. And I thought this was fine, um, uh, but at one point I was reading it, and I didn't know who was worse for the fate of the planet, the monsters that are coming out, or Dave, because he's the worst kind of champion that this planet has, and he's not very smart, and is still very much trapped by his his addictive and self-destructive tendencies. So, but it's got some monster mayhem. I wish it ended. The first book had ended with a dragon attacking. I think it was Air Force Two. But I I was hoping for more flying dragons, but with the way things were all set up, and there's like a Lulu of a of a reveal or twist or escalation of stakes that when it happened, I literally, not figuratively, literally, had to put the bookmark in the book and set it down and like laugh for a good solid minute at, at what this could mean for what was to come. So I'm sure that the third book will be really exciting and action packed with a lot of monster mayhem. And so I give as long as you know that Dave is a, a hopeless reprobate and a jerk face that you know with very, very, very few redeeming qualities. If you can get past that, you'll probably enjoy the book. But he does burn quite a few bridges in this book because he just doesn't learn. And I think that's something that is going to play a major factor in the third book. But I enjoyed the first one, and this one I not as much as the first, but it's the middle part of the trilogy. So of course, you know, everybody has a really much more difficult time of it than they did in the first book, and hopefully things resolve for humanity, or we'll all be in blood pots. Who knows? I don't know. So that's a reluctant recommendation for the Dave and the versus the Monsters trilogy, the first two books. I'll let you know what the third one is, and the next when I get around to reading it. And next up on here on my list, we have the trail camera, and we had a feasting deer. So enjoy this. Yeah, the plums are, you know, blooming, I guess, or ripening. So we're going to get a lot of deer, get some raccoons and stuff, and maybe there was at one point coyotes show up to eat them as well. So, but they cleared out the HOA had some of the long grass out back. They cut it down this afternoon, so that means there will probably be a lot more visible, especially the raccoons, because they're on the ground level as opposed to that. And they were probably obscured by the grass, and now they won't be. And with the grass down also, that probably means the coyotes will be visible too. So hopefully all that it will be coming up and be fun to look at. The only viewing we did, although we kind of waffled about it, Tanya and I decided to go see The Mandalorian and Grogu, and on Friday night, even though we had just figured out, learned of Sam's diagnosis. And um, yeah, the movie's fine. I enjoyed it. It's empty calories. It's basically the cinematic equivalent of a Snickers bar. It's probably too long. It could have been cut by about 10 or 15 minutes, maybe even more, and really doesn't have any kind of like any any real big story arc or character development other than like this Schwarzenegger style hut. I think he's called Rodo the Hut. Rondo Hutton. But yeah, it was fun, but nothing that I hadn't seen during the first 2 or 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. And I'm sure it'll do modest numbers, but it's not. It's just your average empty calories. And like a lot of latter day Marvel movies too, just very soulless. It's just nice to look at. Grogu's cute. Mando kicks butt. There's a lot of cool monsters. It's a really great giant snake monster that was cool to look at. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I wasn't bored, but I really wasn't all that. Engaged with it. It's just like, but there was a couple of scenes in it where I laughed and I was like really enjoying the action. So if you're into that kind of thing, you may want to check it out when it comes on to Disney Plus or Hulu or wherever it's going to show. Or you may want to, drop I don't know, $20 for a movie ticket? That's at least $20 for a movie ticket, and then it's like 40 for a bucket of popcorn and a soda or something. I mean, heck, man, you could buy a Blu-ray for that stuff. But that is the reading and the viewing. So I'm just going to jump into the Wayback Machine now, and we're going to see the newspaper ads from dates concurrent with the work week of the 5th and final week of May, which was from Monday, May 25th, through to Friday, May 29th. And let's get in, buckle up for safety, and zip back to May 25th, 1977. And the Nature Run Amok opus Day of the Animals starts today. This came out basically almost exactly 1 year after director William Girdler and producer Edward L. Montoro, as long as returning stars Christopher George and Richard Jekyll, had struck box office gold with Grizzly. And so they all gathered together to see if they might be able to milk a little more cash from the animal attack genre cow. The only one that didn't return was Andrew Prine, who played the helicopter pilot. And it was interesting. The story that I heard, and I think I read it was either an interview with Prine in the pages of Fangoria or a retrospective about Grizzly. But Prine, who was asked to play the part that eventually went to John Cedar, and that's the guy whose wife dies, and he helps a little girl, and they get to town. That character. If you've seen Day of the Animals, if you're not, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But Prine shared how when they were on the set shooting like the conclusion of Grizzly, when the bears attack on the helicopter and everything, he said he walked over to the animal wrangler. He asked the guy, he goes, so what's this bear trained to do? And the guy looked at him and said, this bear ain't trained. So when asked to do Day of the Animals, Brian basically told them all to go pound sand. But yeah, I always remember that when I watched Day of the Animals and Grizzly. It's just like, yeah, I don't think Andrew Prine was acting when he was looking all scared during some of those scenes. Um, while Grizzly had been a monster hit and for 1976 had been the highest grossing independent film of all time, I think the budget for the movie, was for Grizzly was 600,000 and it made about 30 mil at the box office. It was huge. Day of the Animals cost a little bit more. They took some of that money. They spent about a 1.2 million, I think. It's about $1 million. So it has a little better production value than Grizzly, but it didn't do nearly as well at the box office. It made a modest to very low end profit, but yeah, it just didn't make anything that approached sizable stacks of cash. I think one source I had said the movie did about 7 mil at the box office, which for the mill, with yeah, it broke even probably and didn't lose money. But it really didn't make copious amounts of cash. Now, from my own admittedly skewed and imprecise memory, this movie came and went from local theaters and drive-ins without my noticing it. I don't remember it coming out. But I do remember watching it when it debuted on television. And I remember liking it. Okay, I enjoyed it. It held my 11, 12, or 13-year-old attention. I have no idea when it debuted on TV. But it didn't grab and hold me like Grizzly had. I think Grizzly also scared the snot out of me. But it was 1976. So I was probably 8 or 9 when that. Since the ad also says there's co-hits keeping the movie company on its opening weekend, I checked to see what was showing with it, where, because it seems to be a fun thing to do, at least for me. And the Alameda Showcase had it coupled with the 1976 thriller Embryo, starring Rock Hudson and Barbara Carrera. While the Coliseum Drive-In had it, appropriately enough, double billed with Grizzly. The Hayward Six had Day of the Animals going solo, while the neighboring Union City Drive-In had it paired with Black Sunday, of all things. Now, that's not the Mario Bava movie. That's the one with the blimp. That's with Robert Shaw and Bruce Dern, based off the Thomas Harris book. Richmond's Hilltop Drive-In also had it paired with Grizzly, while Pleasant Hills Motor Movies Drive-In, which I don't know how long that was around, but they had it paired with Rooster Cogburn, of all things. So that was an interesting thing. Of all the movies that are it's paired with, I think Embryo is the only one I have yet to see. But more on that in a moment. We're going to pop forward 2 years to May 25th, 1979. And here we have an ad exploiting all of the legal issues swirling around what is now probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, adult film titles of all time. Although, for whatever reason, the San Francisco Examiner changed the title from Debbie Does Dallas to Debbie for Dallas. The two primary legal controversies with the film were, first, the alleged unauthorized use of the likeness of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader uniform or costume in the film's climactic scene. And second, One of the locations used during filming was not made aware that the footage being shot uh, was of the hardcore variety. But that was all grist for the marketing mill, of course. A lot of publicity, and you know, as far as the latter problem goes, Debbie Does Dallas would not be the first or last adult film that would get into trouble with a licensed location learning that the low-budget film being shot there was an adult feature. There was a dust-up over one being shot at Dunsmuir House in Oakland. And that was around the same time period as Debbie Does Dallas was being shot on the East Coast at the school in Brooklyn. It was not a high school or anything. I think it was a college, but yeah. And in the actually it was the early aughts. I think it was Wicked Pictures got busted for shooting a movie called Pirates on a historic clipper ship and popular tourist attraction that is located in San Francisco. So I remember hearing about that on the news. I've never seen the movie yet. I'm much more interested in like the cultural and business history than I am the actual kind of like product. But there you go. All right, now we're going to zip back 3 years to May 26, 1976, and the aforementioned embryo starts today. And as I said when discussing Day of the Animals, which this movie was paired with, I think, at the Alameda Showcase. Anyway, this is another woeful gap in my genre viewing. But unlike Day of the Animals, I do remember this film's theatrical release. Seeing the title on a drive-in marquee and maybe some TV spots or radio spots, and being somewhat curious about it. But I would have been 8 or 9 years old around that time, and even though I was somewhat intrigued, my parents most assuredly were not. So didn't see it, and yet to see it. However, the director, when I did a little look-see into his career, has directed has a pretty impressive list of stuff. He directed one of the classic episodes of The Twilight Zone. I think it was the last episode of the first season, which was A World of His Own, which starred Keenan Wynn and was written by, I believe, Richard Matheson. Speaking of Twilight Zone and Rod Serling, he directed the film version of Requiem for a Heavyweight with Jack Palance. He also directed Sidney Poitier in Lilies of the Field and Cliff Robertson in the film Charlie, to name just 3. And he did make one movie I do remember seeing on the big screen, and that was the Robert Mitchum vehicle, The Wrath of God, which he played a priest that gets embroiled in some shenanigans in Mexico, I believe. And I just remember, like, they asked Mitchum's character to pray over dinner, and he's just like, "Rubby-dub-dub, thanks for the grub." As only Robert Mitchum could do. All right, now this is a big jump back. 55 years, I think, to May 26, 1921. And we have the Sunday edition of the Oakland Tribune seeing the launch of a serialization of John Augustine Cole's historical novel, The Bride of Mission San Jose, which, if the Google Books synopsis is accurate, and it may not, concerns human trafficking. Basically, women being abducted and sold as brides by the people running the titular mission. So they're maybe a bit indigenous people, or who knows. But it also seems to be based off actual reports, it seems. The book is available over at Project Gutenberg as well as the Internet Archive if you are more curious about it than I am. We're going to zip forward now 50 years, haha, to May 27th, 1971, and the exclusive East Bay engagement of the Andromeda strain will start tomorrow. Now, whatever my first exposure to the work of Michael Crichton was, has long been buried beneath the smothering sands of time. Um, but I do remember watching this film adaptation when it made its network television debut. Being an enthusiastic fan of morbid fare and disaster movies, I did love the film's unsettling opening. And yet, everything after that seemed a tad sterile and, well, lifeless. The end result for me was a film that, while it kept my attention, just didn't really hold my interest. I kept holding out hope that there would be a tad more devastation, an escalation of the threat, something that would make make the clock tick a little louder. Maybe I was hoping for something more akin to The Color Out of Space as a germ. I don't know. But that did not happen, so it goes. But, it's not a bad movie, and Crichton's novel's decent, so. May 27th, 1941, I'm going to zip back 30 years, and Abbott and Costello's follow-up to their Army-themed hit Buck Privates is a Navy-themed romp called, appropriately enough, In the Navy. While I do have a memory of watching Lou Costello stumble through boot camp, I'm pretty sure that was Buck Privates and not In the Navy. But these ads just remind me I really need to rewatch these movies and get them sorted out for discussion and coverage here. Yeah, just you can't go wrong with Bud and Lou. They're really funny. Zipping forward 37 years to May 28th, 1978. And the Sunday Date Book wants you to know that Damien Omen 2 is going to start June 9th at a theater near you. Now, considering how The Omen raked in copious amounts of cash on an admittedly modest budget, I think it cost $2 million to make, and it ended with an ominous promise of biblical torments to come, it comes as no surprise that the producer, Harv Bennett, and the distributor, 20th Century Fox, decided to craft a series of films about Damien Thorn, also known as the Antichrist, growing up and coming to power. The whole they said, hey man, let's adapt the Book of Revelation, at least chapter 13, the good stuff, what's everybody scared about, and not at all bad. Not a bad concept, really, in theory, but in execution, though, get it? Not so much. But even with the obvious and inevitable workings of the law of diminishing returns on display here, Damien Omen 2 does remain my favorite of the trio. This might have to do with how Damien himself is characterized in the film. Here, the movie has a tantalizing glimmer of an idea regarding Damien having a degree of personal autonomy that goes beyond being just pure evil. That it's like a decision he has to make. And there's a moment, it's like, well, what if he's not on board with the idea? What if he doesn't want to do it? What if he says no? But that would be a different movie. It's just a glimmer. Just a brief, tantalizing flicker of an idea that doesn't really go anywhere. But it's something that helps elevate this weird, twisted take on the coming of age trope. And you couple that with some truly operatic and over-the-top death scenes, another terrific score by Jerry Goldsmith, and some very well-utilized production value from its, I think it was shot predominantly in Chicago, Illinois. And it's easy to see why this middle entry in the Omen trilogy It has become my comfort viewing of choice. It's the one it's the one I enjoy watching the most. It's my favorite. Is it good? All right, we're gonna shoot back. Let's see, it was 78, so 56 years to May 28th, 1922. And here we have a melodramatic ad for Blanche Upright's new novel, The Valley of Content. This ad says every page is pulses with palpitating life. That it fascinates and throbs with tense passion, hate, love, despair, hope, and greed. That it is a book that will keep readers turning the pages well past the chiming of the witching hour. From first page to last, it is vitalized by tears and laughter, by comedy and tragedy, and above all, with a tense human interest which grips you right up to the totally unexpected ending. What does, Damien Thorne show up? Godzilla? Well, no, that's 1922. It wouldn't be. I don't know. Maybe the Titanic didn't sink. Who knows? Anyway, from what little I was able to find out about it, it seems to be a soapy, sudsy melodrama about a humble husband and his wife who really wants riches and the good life. But when the latter gets what she hopes for, does it truly make them happy? Again, I think this is available on Project Gutenberg and the Internet Archive if you want to check it out. I don't know. Now we're going to shoot forward 87 years to this century. Finally, God, we got a movie coming out on May 29th in 2009. Drag Me to Hell starts today. After a near 2-decade-long hiatus from the horror genre, Sam Raimi returned to the genre from which his career was birthed with this zesty offering. I do remember at the time of release there being a smattering of online complaints and grumbling about the movie. One being that it was rated PG-13 and therefore it would not be gross and transgressive enough for him, and not have any of it would be safe, family-ish, friendly, and it wouldn't have the visceral thrills of Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness or whatnot. Another was that it was not Evil Dead 4, and they wanted Evil Dead 4. But being a Sam Raimi film, Drag Me to Hell does blend visceral shocks with Three Stooges-inspired splatstick comedy to great effect. And longtime fans will also be rewarded with an ending every bit as upbeat and optimistic as the ones for the first two Evil Dead movies were. So, all right, our final stop will be on May 29th, 1920. So we're going back 89 years? Yeah, 89 years. And here we have an ad for the 7th book in Edgar Rice Burroughs' long-running Tarzan series. Tarzan the Untamed. This book might fit the description of being a fix-up novel, as it mashes together two different serials, the first being Tarzan the Untamed, which is also the title of the book, and Tarzan in the Valley of Luna, to create a longer narrative, one that is set during the events of World War I, and it seems to have been one of his most controversial works. I've only read the first two Tarzan books, so it might be a while before I catch up to this one, but it's the one that kind of transitions from the more, I don't know if you would say grounded ones, but there's he started going all in on the lost civilizations and whatnot with this book was that transition where suddenly every square yard of jungle had like some lost civilization in it. Oh. But I hope I'll get around to it. The hubbub primarily was basically how um, Burroughs characterized the German people who, in this book, who were characterized as evil incarnate and irredeemable. But it was set during World War One. But it did evidently end Burroughs' popularity in the German literary market. Not that I think his books would have survived the horrors that would ignite in the 1930s and 40s. But who knows? But that's our last stop. And there we have it. A sad update as to the health of Sam, and another pile, a little smaller pile of stuff packed, stacked, and racked, which means it's time to get started on next week. Next week, forthcoming, there's going to be the movie ad recap slideshow, 4th volume thereof, which is all of the movie ads, not the books or magazines or anything, just the movie ads that were discussed during the month of May 2026. There's my little slideshow there, the ads and some movie stills. And also Puzzle Fest Volume 1, which will be a collection of the 3 jigsaw puzzle assembly videos that were in the last 2 or so episodes of Stuff of the Week. The next book I'm going to read, next month is June on the Range, and I had mentioned both to Michael K. Vaughn on a comment on his announcement, and then I also mentioned on Jeff's Cave of Cool Books that I have some like Louis L'Amour and Elmore Leonard westerns sitting around that I might crack open. But Jeff mentioned, hey, Weird Westerns work too, because he knows me well. And I looked over at my Mount Sudoku, and I was like, do I have any Weird Westerns that I haven't logged yet? I do, and you know what? I do. I have them. So my next book on deck, is going to be Lone Women by Victor Laval, which is a Weird Western. I don't know if there'll probably be Elmore Leonard or Louis L'Amour next month as well, but this one's definitely going to be a solo review for June on the Range. That's what I'm reading next. This was probably what's going down. This and the anthology Weird Women, which I really need to start picking up and reading again. They're going down to Pasadena to Monsterpalooza this weekend. Hitting the road on Friday. So, let's see. Oh, also, seeing The Back Rooms tomorrow night. My friend and I are going to go out to dinner and then go see the movie, and hopefully it's good. Reviews seem to be positive. I really liked Kane Parsons' stuff on the Kane Pixels channel. I'm really, and what was that one he did in the mall, The Oldest View? That thing. Oh, I was on the edge of my seat for most of that, so I'm really looking forward to see what he does. I've already mentioned Monsterpalooza, and I didn't make it to Passenger last week, or the week before, but I did check the showings, and the Regal Cinema that's right next to the Pasadena Convention Center, evidently it's showing Passenger. So on Saturday nights after Monsterpalooza closes down, I usually go see a movie, and that's probably going to be the movie I'm going to see. And that's what's coming up. That's what I did. All that. So I may not be the most animated at this moment, but my fur baby's sick, so me. And but that's it. Okay. So until next week or next time, let's all try and have some fun. And yeah, let's all have some fun. Okay. Bye.